the platform. Step up and speak out.
You tune into ZFM Stereo, my station, your station, the hottest radio in town. Sorry for the late delay. We just had a technical glitch on this side. We sorted that out. But it is Political Mondays on the platform, as I say before. My name is Kwirirayi, and today's topic is, well, as always, topical. One of the biggest stories that came out of the weekend. But before I tell you about this story, just to remind you of the frequencies you can listen to us on. In Bulawayo, my hometown, 106.7. In Kamativi, Wange, the frequency is 105.1. Chifu 99.8, Masvingo 96.1, Victoria Falls 106.5, Mutorashanga 97.6. We're broadcasting out of Harare, where our frequency is 106.4. And of course, you can listen to us via our website. It's www.zfmstereo.co.zw, and also you can listen to us via the TuneIn app. Just download it via whatever favorite app store that you use, and you can listen to us live and in charge. And then, of course, this show you can listen to us by tomorrow will be available for streaming via our YouTube platform. Just look for ZFM Stereo on YouTube, and you can listen to us live. You can listen to the show once again. And the conversation, of course, is live. And get in touch with us on Twitter at ZFM Stereo. On Facebook, it's facebook.com/ZFM Stereo. On Instagram is at ZFM Stereo ZW. And just to also, if you want to get in touch with us, the WhatsApp number we are using today is 0772 168 045. So we're using 0772 168 045 as our WhatsApp number today. Now, last week Friday, the ruling party ZANU PF launched their 2018 election manifesto. The theme of the manifesto is Unite, Fight Corruption, Develop, Re-engage and Create Jobs. In the manifesto, ZANU PF pledges to transform Zimbabwe into a middle-income economy by 2030. Government is targeting an annual economic growth rate of 6% per annum in the next 5 years. The party also say that if given a new mandate, it would strive to achieve fiscal and debt sustainability and industrial and capacity utilization of 90% by 2023. Other targets include improving health delivery in line with the sustainable development goals by 2023, delivering 1.5 million medium income housing units in the same period. Now, in the studio today, first of all, I've got a political analyst by the name of Richard Mahomva. Also here is, we're expecting him shortly, is the Director of Information and Publicity for ZANU PF, Mr. Dennis Musukuma. And then on the phone, I've got a research fellow at the National Endowment for Democracy in Washington, D.C., Dr. Alex Magaisa. Welcome to the program.
My pleasure, Larry.
Welcome to the program, Dr. Magaisa.
Well, thank you for having me once again. Thank you.
Okay, first things first. Starting with you, Mr. Mahomva, what are your first reactions from after having read the manifesto? What's your first reaction?
Basically, the first reaction is that as one looks at the manifesto, one expects that ZANU PF is emerging from unique circumstances of its rebirth, influenced by the November experience. And one would expect that the manifesto should cover issues of continuity, issues of succession, and perpetual ideas as the fundamental starting point of its definition of its power mark. One would expect that the manifesto would place much emphasis on an overhaul of the public administration system to make sure that it attends to issues of craft literacy and craft competency at a more detailed level. But rather, the challenge that one comes across is that it offers a generic template of what any normal government should deliver, and without certain new things, which might also suggest that probably there was less commitment to research as far as gathering concerns in curating the manifesto was concerned.
Your reaction, Dr. Magaisa?
Well, you know, a manifesto is a selling point. It's a marketing that says to voters, this is who we are, this is what we are going to do, and this is why you should vote for us. It must hit certain points. This manifesto is very blunt. The manifesto seems to me, and as my colleague has pointed out, like something that was a rushed job. I'm not sure that enough care and attention to detail was invested in the drafting of this manifesto. There are a lot of things that leave a lot to be desired. We shall, of course, get into more detail in our analysis during the discussion. But it seems to me that the candidate in this case has reason to be concerned about the manifesto that has been presented as ZANU PF's selling point. I think it could have been much better. But it's always difficult to sell something when you have been selling the same thing for 38 years. Sometimes I think you end up running out of new material that you should be selling to people. But as Richard has pointed out, there was an important political development in November last year. It should have given them an opportunity to actually come up with something more innovative. But I don't think that enough attention was invested in this project.
Okay, so there's something early on. I'm having a chat with my producer, Ernest, here, and he said, "Okay, do people in Africa, let's say Zimbabwe, do people in Zimbabwe actually read manifestos?" First of all, starting with Dr. Magaisa.
Well, it's an important question. It's an important issue. I think that the advantage that ZANU PF and perhaps even their rivals will have when they launch their own manifesto, because we don't know what it's going to look like, is that not many people find time to read manifestos. And indeed, we have the kind of analysis that we're having now, which I think is an important part of the process of informing the voter. And so you guys are doing an important job, and I hope you do the same thing for when the MDC and other parties produce their own manifestos, because manifestos are often written in language that is not always easy for the ordinary person, but it's important for analysts and others who are experts in their field to come down and break down what it is that is being said, highlighting the merits and the demerits of what is being presented. And this is what you're going to be trying to do today. So hopefully people will become more engaged after this discussion. They'll be able to go out and try and look for the manifesto and see what it is that ZANU PF is promising, and that they will do the same thing for the other parties as well.
Yes, and coming back into the studio, Mr. Mahomva, like if you look at it at the moment, the discussions that are taking place are about the 1.5 million houses, and not much else is being discussed. Would you agree with Dr. Magaisa's assertion that people don't really read manifestos? And for the person who's sitting at home, get in touch with us on 0772-168-045. That's our WhatsApp number. And do you actually read a manifesto, or do you wait until something is sold to you?
Basically, I think considering the literate rate that we have in Zimbabwe, it actually reflects that people do read manifestos. Because much has been invested in our education, and people have developed a sense of curiosity around political issues. So it is naive to say people would not read a manifesto. But rather, even if people do not read a manifesto, what should always emerge in any manifesto is that it should be tactile. What should emerge in any manifesto is that its contents should be fluid and cutting across its targeted audience. So I think it is quite naive to say people don't read manifestos, but there is even a language that actually turns a manifesto into a jingle. If you recall the previous manifesto, the Zima said, it resonated across the public sphere, even with people that didn't even read it, because it had this tactile impact, it had this fluid kind of impact, which really one might not identify in this current manifesto of the Revolutionary Party.
I'd like to welcome to the studio one of the other guests, the Director for Information and Publicity in ZANU PF, Mr. Danny Musukuma. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much for having me. Greetings to all listeners.
Something has been said, and I'm going to read also a message that's come in on Twitter from Prince T. Mutakaya. It says, well, this is my 2 cents contribution. The recently launched ZANU PF 2018 election manifesto is jumbled up, unrealistic, and contemptuous of the electorate, as most of the promises would be difficult to achieve within the next 5 years. Will ZANU PF deliver what's in their manifesto?
Well, this is a manifesto that speaks to the wishes and aspirations of the Zimbabwean people. And perhaps it might be a little bit difficult to address to the question or to the contribution that has been made, with substance, perhaps even specificity and exactitude, because there's not been a citing of, specific areas, where you can say that these promises are not realistic, but it's just something which is wholesome. But I can proceed and set out, the major promises, which in any case, are in consonant with the views and aspirations of the people of Zimbabwe. One, commencing with a theme and unpacking the theme, which is unite, fight corruption, develop, re-engage, and create jobs. These are the anchor pillars, of this manifesto. Within the trinity of unity, peace, and development resonates the wishes and aspirations of the people of Zimbabwe. We can only develop when we are a united people. Moving forward, corruption is a vice, it's a cancer. It's one of the evils that has, together with corruption and hunger, bedeviled, the society of Zimbabwe and the economy by and large. It has derailed economic development. The commitment by ZANU PF and to dealing with that vice decisively, the willpower that has been demonstrated is critical to impelling development of a nation and a society. A re-engagement. Zimbabwe has for quite some time been isolated. Zimbabweans are aware of the reasons why Zimbabwe was isolated. It was not because of ZANU PF. Perhaps it was because of pro-people policies that in any case were implemented, for which she was punished, by the Western former colonies. Now, but we say those countries that would appear genuine in respect of their concerns, the current dispensation is willing to engage in them on a win-win basis. And that takes Zimbabwe to another level, of development. Now, the creation of jobs and development, right? Jobs can be created when we are integrated in the family of nations, and we derive a benefit from that relationship in respect of even international capital. Seed money will come into our economy, of course, without intruding upon, the national interest. But of course, coming on a win-win basis. Okay. This is the foundation of our manifesto.
I get that. Yeah. The listener, and I give him an opportunity to speak so that you can give us it's almost like a background of what it's about. But Hansi, you've got so many promises that you've put in there. 1.5 billion houses, middle income economy, issues, so many things that even sometimes looking at your political party has accused the other party of being, living in a fantasy world because they came and said we want to have bullet trains. So the question that the person's asked at home is to say, can you achieve those things that you're talking about in 5 years? In the 5 years you're talking about?
These promises are achievable. The promises are achievable. We have a promise that the economy will grow. We do have a promise to the effect that we are going to have agriculture financed to the optimum, and in the process becoming the backbone of our economy and creating jobs along the way, achieving the inherent goal of indigenization, equitable distribution of wealth. We have got a promise to ensuring that the mining sector is capacitated. The international capital is accommodated through creation of conditions which are conducive for foreign direct investment, through even reviews of legislative instruments, and also the policy like the easy of doing business. We also have got a promise to ensuring that our tourism sector, is capacitated, is enhanced, in the process of which FDI, is expected in the country. Again, the manufacturing sector, the secondary productive sector are capacitated. In the mining and even in the agricultural sector, which perhaps we can say at primary level, we are going to witness a situation where we are going to value addition and beneficiation through processing, of those, products, from the agricultural sector, and even value adding, through processing of our minerals. In the process, we'll be creating jobs, in abundance. The housing promise, the promise for 1.5 million houses over a period of 5 years, it has to be appreciated that it is not like the government will construct houses and just deliver and take people on the on the waiting list and say this is your house and distribute. No, there are various mechanisms. Okay, right? They can be funding from banks.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. What I want now is to get everyone else into the discussion and also get a lot of what the listeners are asking. Dr. Magaisa, having heard that earlier on, you said a lot of the things that were in the manifesto do not seem researched, do not seem properly thought out and so forth. Does that answer give you any confidence that this has been thought out and there's a plan in action?
No, thank you very much. I was listening carefully to my colleague, my counterpart speaking there, and there is nothing new that he is saying with respect that we have not read in the manifesto. Let me just point out, I think, a fundamental point. A manifesto, like I said, is a selling point for a political party. It says what the ideological position of the party is, and it tries to entice people to believe in the dream that they're selling. Now, there are two parts of the constitution, of the manifesto, which are completely at variance with each other. Firstly, they refer to themselves as ZANU PF is a free enterprise, believes in a free enterprise and free market economy. That's what it says in one part. In another part, it talks about that it understands socialism with market characteristics. Now, these are two different things. When you do a manifesto, there must be ideological coherence. There must be ideological clarity. You can't talk of free market capitalism on one hand as something that you believe in. And then on the other hand, you go on to talk about a different strand, which is socialism with market characteristics, which perhaps they are trying to borrow from the Chinese. So it looks like there are two people who wrote the manifesto. One wrote one part and another wrote the other, but there was no reconciliation. And this is what I mean by a failure to attend to detail, to persuade people, so that when it is analyzed by experts, they see that there's something fundamentally wrong with the foundation of this political party. This is not the ZANU PF that we have known for years. And even though some of us have been very critical of it, it's disappointing to see it being in a position where it cannot even articulate its own ideological position. And I think this is a huge disappointment. Second, there are some parts of this manifesto which are complete falsehoods. Number one, it talks of its achievements, for example, as being a formidable health infrastructure that it has built over the years. I don't think that there is any average Zimbabwean who would concur with this particular statement. We have had a nurses strike recently, which among other things is the conditions of service for nurses, but also the fact that the facilities are not up to scratch. So this is not something that a party would actually put up and extol as a virtue in its manifesto. Second, they talk about massive development in housing over the years. But this is the same party which is making a completely unrealistic promise of building 1.5 million homes in 5 years. I think those who do mathematics were saying this would translate into something like 800 houses, per day or something like that, which is completely unrealistic. I think it's important that when you are selling things to people, you are honest to them. ZANU PF talks about zero tolerance to corruption. But you go to Zimbabwe jails today, you ask, has there been any high-profile casualty? Persons who have been arrested, people who have been convicted of corruption. Yet we know that Zimbabwe is a thoroughly corrupt country. And the president and ZANU PF itself has acknowledged that Zimbabwe is a thoroughly corrupt country. It's a cancer. I think my counterpart has already admitted that. But what result do we see of that anti-corruption drive? Nothing. And so the points that are being mentioned as achievements, the points that are being mentioned as the high points of ZANU PF over the past 5 or so years or even 38 years are not existent. It is not correct. And this is what makes people very suspicious of politicians, because they tell them one thing, but they do completely the opposite. I was also looking at what they called the achievements over the past 5 years, and there is nothing but a list of excuses. And I'm wondering, you look at the presidential candidate, Mr. Mnangagwa, they list one achievement, just one achievement in his 38 years, and that is Command Agriculture. And you wonder, these people who wrote this manifesto, were they actually doing it on behalf of Mr. Mnangagwa, or were they undermining him? Because surely, in 38 years, he has done something beyond that one so-called achievement in Command Agriculture. And this is the problem that I have as someone who is reading this as a potential voter, and I look at the ideological confusion, I look at the falsehoods, and I look at the very limited detail that is in this manifesto, and I say to myself that they could have done better, they rushed it, and they have not done a service to their candidate and to their party.
0772-168-045. Get in touch with us. That's our WhatsApp number. I'm going to give the ZANU PF an opportunity to respond to that. But just to read some of your messages on the question that I asked earlier on, where I say, do you read political manifestos? Are they documents that you pay attention to? Sabau Alfred online says, people read manifestos, but they're now tired of lies. No wonder they now ignore. Another message here says, from Chipinge Luxon says, I don't. The truth Samurai Dion says, to be honest, I'm suffering from document fatigue. I don't care what their manifestos state. Whoever can change the situation in the country has my vote. Less theory, more action. I'm going to read some more. Someone says, Mubau says, the manifesto is not worth a read after all. It says, why were the things in 2013 manifesto not implemented? 2 million jobs created. That's another question, and that's a question that's been coming up. Now, I want to address that after the break. So, and then someone says, what new ideas after 38 years do you have? Reading another message here. Okay, we're going to come and read some of these messages. There's a lot of messages coming. Get in touch with us on Twitter at ZFM Stereo, and also get in touch with us on 0772-168-045. We're taking a quick break. When we come back, we'll unpack again more of this issue to do with the new People's Manifesto as released by ZANU PF. ZFM Stereo, my station, your station, the hottest radio in town.
The platform. Step up and speak up.
You're indeed tuned into ZFM Stereo, my station, your station, the hottest radio in town. The name is Kwirirayi on Political Monday, this episode of The Platform, and we are talking about the ZANU PF manifesto that came out. Just to remind you that today we are using 0772-168-045 as our WhatsApp line. So it's 0772-168-045 as our WhatsApp line today. And put a poll up just about, I'd say about 10 minutes ago. And I'd ask for a question: do you read political manifestos? And we've already got close to 60 votes, and 50% say no, 33% say yes. Depends. That's from 9%, and 8% of those who we asked are saying I don't care. 8% say I don't care about manifestos. So we'll say roughly about 50%, kind of like on the border. I'll actually go and say 58% say they don't care about manifestos. Now, we asked this earlier. And we're going to, this question that was asked, and I'm going to ask you, Mr. Musukuma, the Director of Information and Publicity for ZANU PF. The fact that we've got this is just a snap survey, and some people are saying, I'm tired of reading documents and so forth. Does it sometimes go into what now people are beginning to say is document fatigue, or maybe sometimes when the document is put together, there isn't as much care given to it because most people are not going to read it?
Well, I think there are a number of factors why some people are not interested in reading, the manifestos. Number one is the language barrier. You see, when a manifesto is being constructed, it will be constructed in a language that has to cut across and traversing, across, all intellectual levels and clusters. To a certain extent, some people may not reach out to the acquaintance, to the articulation, that will, give them some kind of appetite and interest in reading through it. But ZANU PF has done something unique this time around to overcome that barrier. This manifesto has been translated into all 16 official languages so that people are able to read through in the languages of their own. And I strongly believe that not being aware of the, of the reach in terms of the coverage or the audience, that are responding to the SNAP survey, that you conducted. But I strongly believe that if this station is reaching out to all four corners of the country and to the countryside there, certainly you'll find that people do have interest in reading the manifestos, for as long as the manifestos are in the languages that they do understand, so that they can derive meaning from the content. And I strongly believe that moving forward, given that ZANU PF has now translated this in the 16 official languages, we are going to see, another complexion in terms of the appetite and desire to reading manifestos.
Okay, I'm going to give you 2 minutes to respond on the issues that were raised by Dr. Magaisa in as far as his reservations about your capacity to bring up the 1.5 million houses. So many of those things that have been brought up. And also the ideological issues that are made reference to, that in one institute free market economy and the others, so your responses to those.
Well, there is nothing new in respect of the ideological position of ZANU PF. The constitution of the party is set out under Article 2. I think it is around Section 9 or thereabout. It is very clear in terms of its economic developmental policy, right? It has to be a hybrid economic system where the market, free market system is accommodated, but at the same time with a socialist element, being there. So this is a hybrid, economic system, and it has always been there. Now, I think as far as ZANU PF is concerned, there is clarity, to the last bite. Perhaps Mr. Magaisa may be referred back to orbit around, the same content and read it through over and over again. He will pick up that there is ideological clarity. Now, moving on to the issue of corruption, you see, it must be understood that we are in a new dispensation. The current president of the party of ZANU PF has been in office since November of 2017. And his competence cannot be measured as against the performance of the former ZANU PF and or former ZANU PF government under the former president Robert Mugabe. Because our constitutions, the laws of the land, clearly set out the functions, the duties and responsibilities, right, and joining the office of the president. And it is clear that the vice presidents are only there to aid, to assist the president as they would be assigned. And in that regard, surely President Mnangagwa, or as president and press secretary of ZANU PF, cannot be wholly accountable to, if at all there is any, the failures of the past dispensation under the former leader, President Mugabe. But on corruption, it has to be understood.
Can I respond to that?
Okay, come in, Dr. Magaisa.
Thank you. Look, I think, there's a saying in English that you cannot have your cake and eat it at the same time. This manifesto lists a number of achievements that have allegedly been made by ZANU PF over the past 38 years. And it includes issues like land reform, issues like empowerment and so forth, which they are talking about. Now, these are things that were achieved during the presidency of Mr. Robert Mugabe. And now, they are happy to take glory for those things. They are happy to say that this is what we achieved as ZANU PF. But when it comes to failures of ZANU PF, when it comes to the shortcomings of ZANU PF, they want to disown them. They want to disown Mr. Mugabe. They want to say that, no, we were not part of it. We were just a vice president. No. We cannot do that. Either you accept the legacy of Mr. Mugabe or you dismiss it completely. You can't have your cake and eat it.
Maybe.
Mr. Mahomva, come in.
Okay, I think what is actually logical is a situation whereby whenever a party reflects or when it architectures its future, we should always be cognizant of the past, Because even as we look at particular realities that the manifesto tries to respond to, particularly the issue of housing, there has always been a need to realign property relations, particularly in the urban population, saying the urban population ought to benefit because at some point the rural population benefited through the land reform. And that is against the historical background. So we need to be constantly truthful of all aspects of history and make sure that we do not celebrate easy victories. So it is important that we confront the realities of our nationalism, its pitfalls, its prospects, and how we can mold the future. Particularly, even if you look at the manifesto, there was need for a strong ideological bedrock to be actually clarified to say we are nationalists and the trajectory that we are taking is influenced by history. And even if we are engaging or re-engaging, there should be particular historical experiences that define us. Because if we are selective to history to suit issues of political convenience, really the future then becomes stagnated. So when we look at history, we need not to be selective. We need to look at all aspects of history so that when we emerge out of history into the present and the future, we emerge being entities that are stronger and better to confront the future.
Coming back to you, the issue that was brought up, like you're claiming the victories, but what about the losses? Are they not part of the history of your party as well?
No, I think if somebody would have time to read through this manifesto, one would understand and appreciate that it is categorized into 5 key compartments. The first category sets out the goals or wishes and aspirations of the people, which informs the policy position, which drives, the leadership, and from which, the promises have been made. As a derivative of consultative processes that the party had conducted over years, through the National People's Conferences, which are conducted annually, where people will be airing their views, their wishes, aspirations, which constitutes the goals of the people. Now, those are what informed those are the ones which informs the leadership of the party in respect of the promises that have been cast in this document. That's first. And secondly, there are achievements, right, that have been made by the party. But there are also constraints. When we discuss about constraints, it is an acknowledgement that whilst we made achievements to a good extent, but there were some pitfalls along the way. And there is justification, why we could not fulfill all the wishes and aspirations of the people as promised. And we clearly set out in this document, issues of the sanctions that, confronted us, as a nation, but as a consequence of deliberate and genuine policies of indigenizing, the national resource and ensure that there was equitable distribution of that national endowment. And that is clearly set out in this document. And I think Zimbabweans need ample time to read through this document, not with negative perceptions, I think with sober mind, and not with only the mind of opposing.
Okay, I think we need to be. I think for the purpose of this discussion, the panel here did not just walk into this discussion without having read the document with the greatest respect. The reality is we have read the document. The document simply says there are going to be 1.5 million houses. You've skirted around the issue that there's going to be 820, that means 822 houses per day. And all those issues, those are issues that are real technical issues. But in 2013, we had the story of 2 million jobs. And people asking, okay, what was the reason? What was the reason that didn't happen? And now all these questions that are coming up. So the question is,
maybe let me come in.
No, I want this answer from ZANU PF.
Okay. But I wanted to come in.
No, I want the answer from ZANU PF. That's a question
extend.
specifically for ZANU PF.
Okay, I'll also extend.
Well, I think 1.5 million houses, even more, is even possible in a period of 5 years. It depends on the method statement, how the action plan, is constructed. Well, I'm a construction expert. On the other hand, I'm a quantity surveyor and a construction management expert, right? And I can certainly confirm that 1.5 million houses is possible to construct. It depends on the resources that are deployed, in terms of financial resources, in terms of the equipment, in terms of the human, resources that will be deployed. It can be achieved. As we speak right now, there is a simple, demonstration that a 4-bedroomed unit, it can be constructed in a period of 3 weeks, and beneficial occupation is achieved. You hand over and it's occupied. That is very possible. Now, there is nothing unrealistic. Maybe I may persuade and appeal to those people that might be non-technical in respect of construction, works or related issues, at least to seek advice and consult, prior to just casting, plain attacks. Now, I can safely confirm, let me demonstrate, with ease. We do have financial institutions. I would want to take the National Building Society. I'll take CABS, for instance. Okay. Now, the resources are there to be deployed towards housing construction, depending on the model, depending on the size of the units, right? It is possible that at least in a single day, right, over time, in a single day, on average, 200 units can be delivered. That is possible. Okay. So I must say that I think before we cast attacks which are not substantiated, there is need for us to really consult on, from the technical experts, so that there is substantiation even in the claim that it is not possible.
Okay, quickly, you say 200 and yet the figure is 822, but the conversation for another day. Dr. Magaisa, come in, and then I want to hear from Mr. Mahomva.
Yes, thank you, Larry. You see, when I listen to my brother speaking, when people are young, they are told that Santa Claus brings things for Christmas, and they believe it. He is telling people things that are told to kids, things that we are supposed to believe as adults, but these things are possible. They have been 38 years in power. They have not been able to do this. And yet, all of a sudden, between 2018 and 2023, they are in a position to build 1.5 million houses. It's not possible. They must make realistic promises to the people. I think that is what is important. But as I have already pointed out, the manifesto is full of falsehoods. It's full of claims that are incorrect. I have pointed out that, and I would want him to answer that question. He says they've built a formidable health infrastructure. Does he look at Kwirirayi, Gomo, and other hospitals in Harare, in Zimbabwe, and all over the place? And he can honestly say that it can be regarded as formidable health infrastructure. They say that they delivered a constitution. I was part of the constitution making process. Of course, there were some very good people in ZANU PF who worked very hard to get the constitution in place, but by and large, the party was resisting the constitution. They have even amended that constitution within the first 5 years, giving more power to the president, something that is contrary to the values of constitutionalism. They talk about the changes that they have made in order to make Zimbabwe more marketable. Issues about corruption. As I have said, they've been in charge for 38 years. They've been in charge for the past 5 months. There are no results to demonstrate that they are serious about fighting corruption. they gave us a list of externalizers. I would have thought that they would talk about these things in their manifesto. But you know what? What did they do with the so-called externalizers? Nothing, zero. In fact, one of the persons who was mentioned in that list of externalizers went on to become a primary election candidate for ZANU PF, and he was elected as one of his candidates. So you've got a party which is talking about anti-corruption, but at the same time, one of its flagship policies since November has not been actioned, and persons who have been named in that list are actually candidates. How is that person going to be campaigning for ZANU PF? They're talking about anti-corruption when he is named on the list of offenders. So there are many issues that are of serious concern in relation to this manifesto for ZANU PF and for the people of Zimbabwe. They have to be honest about what they are going to sell to the people. And as I have already pointed out, the ideological confusion shows that there has not been enough attention that has been paid into the writing of this constitution. There are so many more errors which I don't think it's necessary to go into within the short space that we have. But as far as I'm concerned, as far as I have observed it, I would like for there to be a proper competition between political parties in Zimbabwe, and ZANU PF is certainly one of those major political parties. But when they produce a manifesto of this nature, then it leaves me wondering whether they are ready to govern at all. And I think it's a serious cause for concern.
Okay, I'm going to ask Mr. Mahomva, and then I'm going to finish off with you in as far as especially issues to do with corruption and the health system.
Okay, I think one issue that we need to deal with is an issue of our mindsets. If Rhodesians were able to create townships, squalid residence for our people, why should we not be confident in the capacity of a modern government, its ability to provide new housing? Of course, there could also arise questions of rationale around the time frame and all of that. But I think we need to be constructive around it and look at it as a symbolic aspect of how the numerical dynamic shows government's level of concern about issues of people who do not have housing. As if that is not enough, we should also look at the background that also influences that, to say issues of land barroning have also been prominent. So against that background, I think the government also has a mandate to ensure that issues of property relations are not only limited to the rural populace. So whilst we may want to debate the logic of the feasibility, but we need to look at the underpinning emotions around it to say we need to consolidate issues of property relations. And again, coming to the background framework of the manifesto, like I had hinted earlier on, but I think there is need to reiterate that there was need for the manifesto to have a lucid articulation of issues around achievements, particularly the issue of special economic zones. For one to just tackle that abstractly really is not adequate. So I think there was supposed to be a situation whereby even when you explain issues around promoting agriculture, the farmer in Mapisa should identify themselves within the manifesto. And the alluvial miner somewhere in Nyatima is supposed to identify themselves within that. Because at the end of the day, you do not want to create a manifesto that has an open-ended commitment to foreign direct investment at the end of the day without direct beneficiation of the masses. So I think there was need for that to be well articulated.
Okay, Mr. Musukuma, those issues quickly, in 3 minutes, just to tackle the issues that have been brought
in respect of the fight against corruption. We do have separation of power in our governing system. Now, ZANU PF as a political party cannot prosecute cases. The leadership will only demonstrate the willpower to allow the law enforcement agents to execute their mandate is set out by the law. Now, the law enforcement agents do not prosecute cases. They will investigate, arrest, and take the matters before the courts of law. The judiciary itself does not write the laws. Maybe the only element of writing the law is through the judgments, their rulings. To a certain extent, law may be written. But the judiciary's primary function is to interpret the laws. Now, our laws are porous. We can have somebody arrested, taken to the courts, but it is no longer for ZANU PF. It's not for ZANU PF to prosecute that person. That person can apply for bail, and the court makes decisions as appropriate, consistent with the laws. So I think this is an issue that perhaps need ample time so that we can ventilate more, around the issue of dealing with corruption. But what I can safely say is that there is commitment, unreserved commitment, by the current dispensation or political leadership within ZANU PF, and which in any case is the leadership within a government. When we talk of health infrastructure, and the learned colleague, Mr. Magaisa, touches on issues of nurses, the welfare of employees, and etc., and seeking to having that relating to infrastructure, perhaps that might, to a greater extent, not be appropriate. It needs not to be, emphasized. When we talk about health infrastructure, we are looking at the infrastructure that was constructed over the period. Now, dilapidation of the infrastructure which seeks refurbishment is another issue. We do have infrastructure in situ, but what we're now talking about, we do have rehabilitation that must be done. But rehabilitation is something else, and there are causes of that infrastructure dilapidating today. History will inform us all that when ISAP was introduced, it has principal objectives. 5 key essential elements within ISAP was to cut an expenditure budget on health, education, defense, of course, among other things, devaluing the currency without economic justification. But it was all with an objective of causing a social crisis, and a social crisis which occurred, and we are still in the course of trying to repair to that. But I think with ample time, we will actually have to delve on these issues and ventilate in the benefit of the listener.
Thank you very much. That's the Director of Information and Publicity for ZANU PF, Mr. Danny Musukuma. I also had on the phone a research fellow for the National Endowment for Democracy in Washington, D.C., Dr. Alex Magaisa, and Mr. Richard Mahomva, who is a political analyst. Thank you very much for coming in.
Thanks.
Coming up now is Chila with Our Story. I'll be back with you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Hello? Okay, I think we got cut off there. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We have to round off now. Thank you very much for joining us. All right, so I'll be back with you tomorrow between 8:30 and 9 p.m. As I said, leaving you in the comfortable hands of Chila with Our Story. It's ZFM Stereo, my station, your station, the hottest radio in town. The name is Kwirirayi, and as I always say, I'll see you, Lucia Sevenza. Take care of yourself.